Hello and welcome. I am Sean Dubay.
And I'm Patrick Quinlan.
And this is Supporting Actors, a podcast about the art, business, and craft of acting from the perspective of two working actors.
And today we're discussing one of the biggest investments any actor makes into their career, the acting class. So we're going to go over how do you know when you need a class, how do you know which class to choose, and how do you know when it's time to leave, move on, find a new class?
All very good questions. My experience with classes is varied. I think when you first come out of drama school, you're like, I don't want to go anywhere near a class. And then eventually you start getting a little worked up and pent up. And then it's like, class for me serves a lot of purposes. It can be a creative outlet. It's a place that you can go and just interact with your craft in a safe way, because acting is one of those things that requires a lot of other people, and it's a spot where you can do that. There are times where you might be working and class is less necessary if you're working regularly, but you can also kind of fall into some bad habits or develop a couple crutches if you're working a lot in a specific area or niche of things, and then if you go back to class you get permission to explore other things. So I think there's been a variety of times in my life where it's been better or worse. And right now, actually, I'm feeling like I need it again. It's been a while since I've been out of it. And I'm really kind of feeling the need to find that freedom in class again, where I can just go and act like nobody's watching because nobody is. So that's the one of the best parts of it.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've been thinking a lot about lately in regards to class is that it's so, and we've kind of touched on this before, but it's very similar to a gym or to a workout regimen. So you get what you put into it, and you can go to it with different intentions. You can go to be challenged and to really push yourself to achieve something new, or you can go to just kind of be checking off a box that you did it, and you're kind of as a personal trainer friend wants to say, like, yeah, man, you can pay to stand in a tree and shake your arms. And call that a workout, Yeah. Like, you can get complacent, and you can also go to class for the wrong reasons. And I'm interested to discuss that, because I've certainly been at fault for that. And so, but I do believe, like, if you have the right intention and there's something you think you're getting out of it that feeds the creative spirit and soul, and maybe that's connection with other people in class, maybe that's the type of material you get to do, that it does check a lot of boxes for you personally, and we don't have to worry too much about the boxes it might check for you career-wise.
Right. Well, because you're not really there for it, right? It's for a career. You don't go to class for a career,
yeah,
right?
Well, because there are famous teachers and famous studios, and like there's certain things that help. Sure. There can be a cynical component, I think, which I've been guilty of. So,
maybe that talks into like with the wrong reason for taking class, right?
We'll get in. Yeah.
But what was the first class you ever took?
The first acting class I took outside of school was, I did a program right after college called the School at Steppenwolf. And then that was like a 9 to 5. It was like a summer conservatory. And when that and we got to do a variety of things. So it was a grab bag of different techniques and exercises and approaches. And then when that ended, I continued on with my teacher, my Meisner teacher, Monica Payne, and she was at the Artistic Home in Chicago at the time. And we were doing Meisner scene study. And then that morphed into a Meisner viewpoints, Sam Shepard, night of Sam Shepard scenes and poems, things like, so there was and acting, like you felt like when you were doing the scenes, you were really digging into the emotions and the intentions of the scenes. And then there was a sort of like theater creativity, like
Hmm.
mixing it up type thing to challenge all of ourselves. That was kind of fun. How about you?
Yeah, for me, I'll go to the first one I ever took. So I was, if you didn't listen to our origin story in the first episode, then I'll recap it very briefly. I was deep in science land, hardcore doing biokinesiology and muscle biophysics. So, as hard science as science gets. And then I took an acting class to fill out my schedule my last semester, and it was like breathing air for the first time, in a weird way, because it all of the things that made me weird or got in the way of doing being a good scientist were now an asset, right? And it was like the way I observed the world, the way I wanted to, I found more joy in presenting results than collecting them, right? Like that kind of thing. And it's like, oh, I'm an actor. I've always been an actor and I should have been acting. It was kind of like the realization that came to me, because I even at that point, like, I had competed in bodybuilding and I had competed in powerlifting, and that was a way of getting on stage and performing in another route, right, in another arena. But I now understand it's all kind of been like that was my creative outlet. And it just happened to be the discipline that I was pursuing, which was physicality. But my first class, we kind of dove into, it was all exercises, right? And like kind of uh, a variety of things, movement, voice work, uh, relationships, trying to get people, a bunch of games where, if you're a bunch of people sitting on a bench and you're trying to manipulate the environment, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff, just learning, milling and seating about, where you're all moving and kind of like forming a flock and just being aware. And then, we do a lot of like movement and mimicking, and just like a lot of bare bones, like build up the actor, an actor prepares type exercises, right?
Yeah.
And that was really great. And then the culmination of that was like a little scene study at the end, and we performed a scene that was a showcase. But there wasn't like a lot of acting directly until the ending. A lot of it was like the little stepping stones, like loosening you up. How do you move?
Sure.
How do you just become aware of your body, aware of the energies around you, aware of how you interact with other people and people interact with you, and just trying to like slowly build those skill sets. And then we also did this piece that was like an introspective, like um abstract solo performance that was like reliving some kind of event that made you feel something.
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't necessarily, we were encouraged for it to not be like, um, to not
Traumatic.
be traumatic. Exactly right. So, how do you use metaphor and working in like other things to you, like, how do you craft like a little one person show from like a life experience in a way that other people could watch it, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
we did that at like the halfway point, and then from there we kind of pivoted into scenes and into scene study. And for me, that was like, in the middle of that, it was like, oh, I now understand why they call it a play, right? And it's like because you're playing, and it very much to me like connected to I connected to part of myself that I hadn't engaged with for a while, or was
Yeah.
sometimes difficult for me to access, which was this sense of joy, sense of play. And that was like not very present at that point in my life. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay. So this is like a profession that requires you to do that regularly. Like, this seems awesome. But that was my first exposure to it. It was a really great one, because it was such a welcoming class. It was at UMass Amherst in their theater program, which is a really great program, and they've got like a little rep attached. And then I was able to do some plays and still have no idea what I was doing. I had no business doing most of what I was doing in there. It was just like fully relying on instinct and not knowing what the etiquette was, or, so breaking a lot of rules unintentionally. Um,
Yeah.
but it was fun, and it was a great time, and it was a really wonderful way in.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a thing about like theater training and being at a school and then also even class afterwards is that you get you kind of get more because it compounds over time. So
Yeah.
it's really about getting in all the reps. And
Hmm.
and in the moment when you're in class and when we're in your community and maybe you're collaborating and maybe sometimes you're competitive with your classmates and stuff, it can feel very smaller than that because you're just like worrying about your one scene or whatever sort of block you're trying to get through or whatever breakthrough you're trying to have. When they're looking back on it now, I'm thinking, oh, it kind of was just about going and just trying everything and just keep showing up and giving it your best. What what are some things that drew you to class after,
Mm.
like professionally in New York or in
Yeah.
LA?
Well, definitely kind of, I've always pursued it kind of in pursuit of skill building. So,
Mm-hmm.
when I first got to LA, well, in New York, I wanted to find a scene study class and like just kind of really learn the craft, right? Because I moved there having taken a couple things, a voice class, I did a couple plays, I did some clown work, I did some scene analysis and script analysis stuff, but I kind of didn't have a huge understanding of the discipline or the craft of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that I wanted to do. And I always had an interest in movies, but I had noticed that like all of the best actors came from theater. And then I really
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed theater. So I was like, great. Well, I'm in New York. I was in the East Coast anyways, going from Massachusetts to New York wasn't that big of a leap. And I was like, all right, I can find some like great training here. And yeah, so I first found a scene study class and just tried to get reps, right? And that, and then that scene study teacher recommended me to a movement teacher,
Mm.
which that really opened up a lot of stuff for me. And that was a Feldenkrais teacher that we also did a lot of intuitive movement and some Alexander work with her. And that, doing scene study and movement together. And then I like got cast in a play off Broadway. And that was like, those three things concurrently really opened a lot for me in terms of my understanding and how I approach things, or just like how it works. It was like I had a big leap there because I had like a little performance outlet. I had something that was really inquisitive in my scene study, but then they're like the movement work. I think really is what opened stuff up for me.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, and then in LA, so like when I graduated from drama school that I went to after that, in LA, I wanted to get some on-camera experience because everything was
Yeah.
not, right. Everything I did was theater, so like it was bigger movements or thinking about the audience and how to work in a proscenium or a thrust stage or whatever. So like there's a certain technical component to theater, right? You manage eye lines and stuff in another way, but a lot of times your director is helping you do that. And they're the first audience for it, and they're making sure that everything is reading and working well. But you have a say in that as an actor. And then when I came here, I was like, all right, so how do I take that and apply it to camera work? And that was the first thing that I sought out was an on-camera acting class where it was um, Meisner based, which was different than what I had done. We did a little bit of Meisner in school, but largely we were kind of a Stanislavski system approach. And then that was interesting. And then a lot of it was kind of just on camera, like really mechanical on camera technique,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So and it was kind of like a rehearsal for camera in a way. And the goal I think was to get you to be just to make some of that stuff internal, to internalize some of the things that are useful on camera. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, if you're an artist or an illustrator, you would practice lines, right? Like the way you draw or lay down a line on paper if you're drafting, right? You would practice these different things. And it was kind of like that. So like a really aware, gross, large scale practice of like specific techniques on camera, right? Under certain moments. And it was like almost prescriptive or mechanical. And the goal was to then not thinking about it after. So like there's a
Right.
couple good tips and tricks that I picked up from it, but eventually, um, I felt like I outgrew that class and what I was
Sure.
getting from it, and I wanted something else. But that's kind of was the first thing that I got when I was here. So, to keep a long story long, my the summary of it, of how I've picked classes has largely been like, I want to work on something specific. Let me find a teacher that's good at that,
Yeah.
and see what they're about, and take what's useful from it, and then go to something else. And I like studying with a variety of people because they all kind of have a different perspective. But that could also be because I haven't really found like the one person yet that I latch to, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you're circling a point that's like, there is no best class. And
Yeah.
I know I have been sort of in the past seen class as like, oh, this is going to be the magic key that unlocks a door to
Sure.
success or something. And maybe it's because of a teacher, or maybe it's because of a reputation in the studio, or maybe it's because of the technique itself, just having that on your resume. But you there's just so many tools and there's so many things you can learn as an actor. So it's kind of balancing, well, what would be helpful to my team and to my what the type of things that I'm going out for, and then what would also be helpful and interesting to me to stay motivated, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking about like discovered Meisner in Chicago and then moved to LA and was like, I guess I should just keep doing Meisner because that felt comfortable. And then doing that, I got to work a lot because it was like twice a week. And I think you even rehearsed in class and then, or rehearsed outside of class. And then in class, you would get to perform every week and it'd be a long day. And then you worked up the system. A lot of studios have systems to work up or levels to work up. And, your mileage may vary on that. And as a kid who liked school, that's a challenge that I like to take on
Sure.
and ended up staying longer than I probably should have or whatever. And then jumped around to places, teachers that had a good reputation or heard good things about. Ultimately, I didn't I found I got, I was just collecting a bag of tools mostly.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, going to move on after 3 months, going to move on after 2 months. And then I got into Second City's conservatory program. A friend encouraged me to do that. And that became like oh, this is totally different than anything I've ever done. How do I keep doing that? And how do I get better at it? I could feel it working my brain differently than other things. But as a result, I never went after like an on-camera class, it was just sort of, and it's like, oh, it just kind of happened sometimes because like you're doing your work and then you audition and you get a job and it feels like, well, I guess that thing isn't as important as I thought. Like I can figure it out along the way as well, which is a nice problem to have.
Well, and this is also one of the things that's perplexing about acting is that you can learn like all of it along the way, right?
Yeah.
You could get lucky with the people you work with, and you do pick stuff up when you're on a gig, right? A lot of times, like other actors are cool and they want to chat about it as well, and you can, or you'll see it through their performance that they're kind of doing a little something, and then you might ask them about it after when the moment's right, and kind of get a couple tips that way. So you do learn a lot by doing.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, so finding a class is kind of weird in that way because it's like, are they necessary? Yes and no.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe that's a good segue into our next section of like green flags and red flags about class, because they're like a lot of things we've talked about on this podcast in previous episodes. There is a whole ecosystem around the pursuit of being a professional actor and acting classes, acting coaches, and all of the accoutrements are a part of that. So like if you're looking for a new class or you're thinking about a class, I guess we could talk about nowadays, what is the thing that's going to, like you said, you were thinking about looking for a class. Where are you going to start looking, you know?
Yeah, well, so now we have a whole new can of worms between like in person or online. Right.
Sure.
And, is an online class going to be sufficient? And probably,
Hmm.
right? It's going to be a little slightly different because you're acting to camera or through a box on Zoom, and that's um, there is a difference there, but there's also a carryover to the industry in some ways
Yeah.
now. So like
I'm,
especially
I'm,
like self tapes, right, are
yeah,
entirely this way. So you just get a lot of reps. Um, I think that acting ultimately is something that you can do and you should be doing in person, and I think you're going to get the
yeah,
most out of that. And so what I've found, and kind of what I think is kind of inspiring me a little bit to take some class, is that I have no problem doing specific work on a self tape, but I have like time to do that. And as I've done some casting workshops, I have gone in with like nerves that I haven't carried in a long time,
hmm,
right?
hmm,
And I just haven't done it in front of strangers, um, that wasn't part of a play that was very well rehearsed, like in a while. So it's kind of, there's some part of me where I just feel like, oh, I'm like out of shape. This skill is tired, like difficult to go in, and feel like you're at 100% like right away. I used to sit in the room and like or in the waiting room and be like, I can't wait to go in. I'm like so ready to go to show them that they're done looking, and like that's not how I've felt the last couple times. I'm a lot more unsure, and part of that also maybe is maturing, but yeah, I just like I've had some nerves and kind of just some shakiness that hasn't been there, and I'm like, oh, I need to really get into class and engage with this more often because I'm now in a situation where the industry's been so slow that I've spent more time making things behind the camera than I've spent on front of the camera for the last year or two,
right,
and
right.
it's just kind of like that shifts your perspective, but it's like it's the same skill set, but it's also different, you know.
Hmm.
So I'm feeling like I need to do some very dedicated acting work just to kind of like knock some cobwebs off and get things moving again. But so what I'm thinking about with that is like, what do I want to get? How much time can I dedicate to it? Because, like you mentioned, a lot of classes have you rehearsing outside of class and you're going up to show, where the work is at currently, right? When
Hmm.
you're in class, and it's then, you're there to discuss what the next steps you need to take are to kind of like try to find all of it in this scene and really bring this thing to life, right? Um, and I don't know that I have time for a lot of like in-person things with some person that lives in the valley, and it's
Yeah.
like I'm, that's not close to me, right? Like it would take me a significant amount of time, or like I have a toddler. Like there's, I'd be starting rehearsals at night, but I'm also in grad school, so like that's a lot of my free time. So I'm like, I might have to think about an online class just for the sake of scheduling, right? Which is like,
Yeah. Or like, finding a studio that has like a weekend intensive just to like
sure.
wet your beak, and
Yeah.
like, because I think
Just get a
there's
lot of reps
quite
at
a
high
few
intensity.
studios that
Yeah.
do that, and just it's going to be 2 full days, but you're gonna meet a few of the teachers at the studio, or maybe the lead teacher, and then you're going to maybe be with some people who are currently there, and you're going to get a vibe for it, and
Sure.
you don't have to necessarily commit to a whole month or whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
No, that's a good point. I know a lot of them, like a lot of them will also let you audit, so you can kind
yeah,
of like get to know them, have a quick little like chat or fill out a form or something, and then pop in and audit a class. So that's another something. Um, but a lot of what I'm looking for are I want someone that's trying to teach you to not need them, right?
yeah,
So and that's important to me, and I think that's something that kind of demonstrates that they truly understand this if they're trying to give you the universal skills to like help yourself, right? I think a big red flag is when you have someone that's like, you got to be here forever, and like,
Yeah.
and it is kind of like, with me you will achieve success, and it's like, no, I will do it on my own, and you're looking to take credit, so that's those are red flags. I feel like a lot of the red flags are ego driven on the teacher's part.
Yeah, I kind of feel like there's more red flags than ever just because everyone is selling themselves on Instagram.
Well, it's because no one's making
So
money as an actor anymore.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, everyone is people who used to make money in other ways are probably reverting to coaching. But it's like I think it's a good thing when a studio has something to say about like the students who have come through their doors and gone on to have success. That can be a good
Sure.
thing. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the right place for you.
Right.
So I think, yeah, that audit or some sort of intro, like open house or like workshop, just to get a feel for the teacher, the methodology, the things that are actionable,
Right.
is the way to go. When I don't know, when you're first coming out of college and new to LA, it's almost like you got to try a bunch of different places and just taste test and
Yeah.
see where your community is, because that's something you can get out of class. But yeah, I don't. There's certain classes that have I think it's not necessarily fair, but I've called them Kool-Aid classes in the past. Where it's just like they could be a great class and a great teacher, but everyone's kind of drinking like no one's thinking for themselves
Yes.
almost, and people get trapped there. I think when you
Yeah.
meet people who become lifelong students, like that tells you a little bit about the studio, that they're not necessarily there to help you go find work and move beyond
Yeah.
class.
I've taken a class once where like um I was talking to one of the students there, and this was like I had met this teacher on a shoot, right? So
Hmm.
like I was on a movie and they were an acting consultant on there. And started talking with them, and they were like, come take my class. And I was like, okay, I was aware of what this was when we started talking, but sure. And they're talking to other students. Like some of the students were like, I couldn't do anything without them, and I'm here at every class, and he's going to go teach.
Hmm.
He's going to go teach in New York, so I'm going to go to New York. And
Oh wow,
I'm
yeah.
like, that's crazy. Like, and then the
I'm gonna lace up my
class.
Nikes.
Yeah, yeah, right. And it's like he's a person, and actually like interacting with the teacher himself was fine, but a lot of the class kind of like deified him in a really strange
Yeah, yeah,
way. And that was just like a community that I was like, yeah, there's some really great actors here, but between like just the weird culty vibe and then the notes were a little esoteric in terms of like they didn't feel actionable necessarily, right? Like the scene that I was in, um we needed to have a little bit more intimacy, and his recommendation was like, why don't you guys go rehearse at candlelight? And it's like, or you could just say, you're missing some intimacy, and then we could fix it immediately,
yeah.
right?
Go have some conversation, or like do. Yeah, exactly. Just
It's
take the
like,
note.
to me, a good class, and like maybe again, this is just like the way that I was taught, is like class kind of put you through the ringer in a little bit of a way, where
Hmm.
we were expected to be able to make adjustments really quickly and then discern like what is a playable note versus a homework note, right? Because
Yeah,
like those are different things. But something where it's like, hey, it doesn't seem like you guys are being intimate, like, oh, that's something that we can address right now, I think, right? In a lot of cases it's like, oh, we can just do that. I can make that adjustment. In this particular case, it's like I can make that adjustment right now, we can just do it again and it'll be right. And like I think in a class that I like, that's happening, right? You have some kind of like live notes session where you're like, oh, okay, cool, so you have an understanding of what's missing, let me see it, and then
yeah.
you go back and you do it, and then it's like, great, cool, keep working on it, I'll see you next week. It's like,
Yeah, because ultimately, like you're trying to have an instrument that is very fluid, right, and can
yes,
vacillate between emotions and intentions, and like can take take notes externally or can draw something internally, and you want to practice that vacillate and like that. Though hopefully you can find that in a scene and that's when it's really alive and a roller coaster of sorts. But that's where you need the director, the teacher, the outside eye to sort of be like, hey, this is working, this is not. Let's see if we can find that layer or that color.
Yeah.
And I think we should say, just for the listeners out there who's thinking about a class somewhere, is like, if the class is promoting like we break you apart and build you back up, and that sort of ethos or this sort of like therapizing, like, is that the word? Therapizing? Therapy.
It's not therapy.
It's not therapy. And it shouldn't be. And you can go to dark places, and then it should be safe for you to then relax and let it go and not have, there should be no trauma and no triggers and like,
or pressure to share personal stuff.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And
it's like,
and those environments where the students, worship the teacher, you can't help but like absolute power corrupts absolutely. Right. So like that teacher is going to maybe start pushing the envelope and trying some things and like,
in my opinion, like that class, it has worked for some people, but for me, it was a little bit of like digging through trauma, right? And it was like that was encouraged. It was you were encouraged to bring your baggage to the scene and for acting to be cathartic. And I think that's dangerous. And they've done some like dream workshops and stuff, and like I've met some people that are like, hey, that really messed me up because it can be unsafe in a psychological way, and it's not therapy, but there are some times where you can't train the actor without training the person in sometimes. Yeah. Right. There are a few things that are like that. But that's
I think a good teacher would sort of see a person diving like a little too close to the bone or something and say like, hey, like you can still go there without going there. Like you can still, like there are other routes to get to where you're trying to go. And, or do you need to go to therapy instead? Or, like, let's talk to, let's not work out all of your stuff here.
Yeah. Because the character's experience is not your experience.
Right.
Right. In that way. So a lot of times, your feelings might be bigger than, deeper than, richer than what the scene needs or what the character requires. Right. So like you want to be careful that you're not falling into that. Like you just need to do what the character needs. And then that's oftentimes not, I think one of the parts that's hard when you're training initially is that like once you start to get a feel for what real acting feels like in terms of like genuine emotion, it's like when you hit those peaks the first time, it's like it's never going to feel like that again, and oftentimes it feels a lot less or quite frankly, it feels like you're not doing anything in most cases. You're just like, I don't know, I'm just saying my lines and I'm really just trying to connect with my scene partner. And people are like, whoa, like, where were you? And it's like, I don't know. I was just saying my lines and connecting to my scene partner. And I felt like I wasn't doing anything, but I was just like really loose and present and all of this stuff comes out. Right. But the point stands is that a good teacher will be like, hey, this looks like a you problem and not a character thing. So you need to sort that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Because ultimately, like if you're bringing unintentionally bringing some baggage to a scene, or if you're looking for a scene to be a catharsis that would be more beneficial in therapy, you're taking something away from your scene partner too. And you're taking something away from the class. Like no one's learning
about
anything
you
from that. It's indulgent. And any teacher that encourages that, I think, is an indulgent thing, because you're also sort of like trying to tame a dragon, you're like, and that is not a technique, right? That's just like just just going after something and like just trying to lift too much weight or something and just like shrugging it up with everything you've got. And
Yeah,
you have no control over it.
Using bad technique, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
I think the gym metaphor does extend itself pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, like if you went to a, if I wanted to become a bodybuilder tomorrow, like the guy would probably be like, it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
And he's like, but here's why I think, A, B, and C, you could do it. Here's what's working against you. And like, do you want to do that? And then it's like, no, maybe I'd rather do this instead. It's like, that's going to take you less time.
Sure.
I don't know. There's no trainer out there promising me I'm going to be like a Mr. Olympian, probably. I hope, but maybe they are. But
yeah. Well, but if they are, they also sell drugs, right?
Yeah. Right.
Which is kind of one of so again, the metaphor I think does stand, because that's one of the things where if there's like upsells for different things, or like, hey, you might benefit from some additional one-on-one coaching.
I can connect you with a manager one day, or like maybe, but like that shouldn't be the promise. Yeah.
No, for sure. If they're like, we can definitely get you out on TV or something. It's like, no one can guarantee you that. It's like, execs can't guarantee you that. So like, there's way too many decision makers. So like, it's just not
it's a committee.
Happen. Yeah, exactly.
So, well, how do we find the right fit? I guess we've kind of like danced around it a little bit, things to look out for, and we've mentioned it, I suppose, in terms of what you're looking for in a class. Like you have to consider everything a little bit.
You do. And I think it depends on what you want, right? If you have a good understanding of what you're trying to work on, it gets a little bit easier to pick a class, right? So, and I would also include like movement work or voice work in here with acting classes.
Yeah.
Not all acting classes need to be scene study, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of benefit from other things. I think scene study tends to be the most fun oftentimes, because it's like it's the skill, right? It's the actual craft of it. But I think knowing what you want to get out of it helps a lot when you're trying to decide, right? And then you can try to find the atmosphere that lets you achieve that goal, right? So like if you're trying to, let's say you're a really intellectual actor and you want to I need to kind of work my way through feeling more through these scenes. Like you want to find a teacher that kind of has a philosophy that's going to work with that. Or vice versa. If you're someone that's like, I don't know, I'm pretty instinctual, but I would like to understand scene study, you want to find a class that's going to be somewhat based in that understanding of the literature, right? So like, I think knowing what you want to work on as an actor will make this a lot easier.
Yeah, I think like scene study, whether it's theater scenes in sort of classic material or even like modern day television and film, is your opportunity to kind of wrestle and work with a partner on the back and forth, the tennis match, and the sort of exercising all the different muscles. But a text analysis class is a great way to work on all of the behind the scenes technique that you need for preparing a on camera audition or not on camera audition, where you're preparing one thing and you're going to read it with someone who's totally flat or has a little bit going on, but they're not in the scene with you fully. Improv, like there's just so many different things you can go about doing. I would say the only thing I don't think has lived on as much into this decade is cold reads. I don't think those are they were a big thing like 10 years ago. Like cold reading class. Like you need, I guess because maybe you'd go in an audition, there was a chance you could get another side, and so you'd have to be able to quickly get it ready. But I'm sure they're still out there, but I don't know.
I think it's
how helpful they are.
I think it's less often. I think the version we have of that now is in audition sides that aren't from the movie.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
And that's what it is. It's like, let's just see what you do with generic material.
Right. Yeah. So it's like deciding what is the material that's going to be in class, what is the approach. When when you have a lot of time and you have a lot of enthusiasm and passion, finding a new technique, whether it's one of the big ones we've talked about in the past, where there are levels and beginner, advanced, and you have to like have rehearsals, like that all is a time commitment. And some people really enjoy that. Like,
Right.
I've never been one who wanted to then find all my props for my scene study class. I wanted like, give me a black box to sit on or a couple chairs and a black stage, and like,
Sure.
we'll go for it. You know,
I'll bring something essential, but that's it.
Yeah. Like,
Or something to
so it's up
stand
to
in
you,
for,
but it's not like you've got to like wear the whole wardrobe and do that, but some techniques sort of require that. And that's part of the exercise. But so knowing what you're getting into there, I think.
Yeah, that's true. I think another thing to consider is like schedule, class size, right? Like, is this a class of 100 people that you go up once a month, right?
Yeah.
Because, I do think there's a certain point where you learn. Like, if you've been in class for a while, you can learn a lot by watching your scene, like other class.
Yeah.
Let's go. So I guess it depends on what you need. If smaller classes, you're going to get more reps. You're going to get more direct, connection and guidance. Like those, that can be useful if that's what you're looking for. That can also get really tiring, right? Like if you've done that for a while and you're like, man, and then you start to, at least for me, a little internal resistance starts to show up where you're like, oh, I don't feel like going to class because it's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable. And that can be good if you're trying to grow in that area, right? Like you're going to have to wade through that discomfort to get the results that you're looking for. But at a certain point, you need to recover from it and give yourself a break, which could be after a couple months and take a month or two off, right? So that's all important stuff to think about. Performance opportunities are cool. If they do like casting workshops or agent showcases,
play or something. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
A one act night or something.
Yeah. So like
or even now, I think collaborating, like there are studios that are starting to be like, hey, we have a class, it's an acting class, but it is an acting writing class. It is an acting, like we are going to produce something as an ensemble type thing.
One of my teachers in New York, she used to have like a cabaret like once a month, which was kind of just like an open-ended, whatever you feel like doing, whatever you're working on, come show it, right? Which sometimes was scenes, sometimes it was like a one-person show or a dance or song. It was a variety of things. She was a movement teacher, so a lot of disciplines were present. But yeah,
I was just thinking, because there are, when you were saying like, how much are you going to work in class? There are a couple very sought after teachers in LA, and for decades they have classes where you pay to perform, you pay to audit, and you pay to watch, and then there's an audit, and then people try to work themselves into the ranks to be able to be performing, and I think they even get to perform only every other week. So you're going to a 3-4 hour, 5-hour class where you're not performing. To me, that was always kind of a deal breaker. But if I were to give advice to my younger self and like, hey, maybe depending on the cost, like if it's worth it, some of those teachers have acting books that you can read and go and look out. And now, of course, they probably have podcast appearances and YouTube appearances where you can at least listen in and find out like, oh, okay, this would be a good fit for me. Because ultimately, it's really about how you're going to get the most out of that class.
So let's say you found a class you're interested in. It seems like things are good. You're going to audit. Like, what are some of the things you should be looking for when you're sitting in there watching performances?
That's a good question. I think I think you kind of have to look at everybody. You have to watch the people in the audience. Are the other students participating? Are they paying attention and watching, or is everybody just worried about themselves? Which I think maybe tells you a little bit about which is going to happen in an acting class. Let's be honest, but like there's a level of like, I guess, how does the class deal with that, right? Because everyone has to perform and they have their anxieties, but like maybe do you get to know you're on deck, and then you can go prepare and get ready, and therefore you're present and watching for people for an hour and a half before you're seen. Seeing how I think watching the scene work, if you like it, if you find the performances interesting, if the notes you're hearing from the teacher ring true and are seem like applicable, like, and actionable. And I don't know, for me, I want the teacher to do most of the work. I don't really need the peanut gallery chiming in, but some teachers allow that.
Yeah.
And then in the class as a whole, there's, some classes they allow a sort of like beginning of the class Q&A, like debrief of what's happening in everyone's week. And that's where I find can be a real time suck. And sometimes you can learn some things, but sometimes, so like how much of that is being corralled, or is like the teacher checking their emails like everyone else is telling you about their horror story from traffic to an audition or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, and then how respectful people are being, and does it look clicky or not clicky? Like I think those, like just getting a vibe of the whole thing is helpful.
Yeah. I think looking at the material they're choosing too, right? Because that can be useful. It should be like you want to work on good material in class, right? Something that's going to challenge you. And is it like, are these a bunch of like TV show sides from the 90s, or is there a lot of like, to me, this is like a red flag, is like a lot of these scenes have intimacy, like physical intimacy.
Everyone's just trying to make out with each other.
Yeah. And it's like, that's, we're not doing that. It's like, to get paid to do that professionally, sure. Like, do I need to do that in a class? Absolutely not.
Right.
So, there's like,
that could be a selling point for some of the listeners out there. So
it could be, it could be, but that's definitely, at a different time in my life. Sure. But, not now. So like the material that they're using, personally, I like to work on plays because I think the way that they're written lends themselves better to performance in this variety, like in this way, right? I think they're a little bit easier for diagnostic because they're meant to be carried just with the acting, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in film and television, a lot of those sides, sometimes like something really well written will rely on the acting, but oftentimes they're thinking about the machine around it, right? And how this thing's going to get made. So not to say that there couldn't be good scenes, but they tend to be shorter. They tend to be
well, that's, how long the scenes are and how long you get to work on the scene. Like, do you get, does it have to be a page and a half and you get 20 minutes, or do you get to do a 3-page, 4-page scene and you work for 30, 40 minutes, so depending on class size and everything, that would be something to look at. And then I think also if you audit, you get to chat with the teacher after, and that's where you can say like, how long do people stay in class? And like, where do people, where do the students maybe study before? Where do they go after? Or, if there's a beginning, an intermediate, and advanced levels, like what is that curriculum like? How are those things different? Like figuring out those logistics, because, you might have you might at first blush not think it's a good class for you, but try it out anyways. And then you find like, oh, actually this is a little more challenging than I thought from that audit, or something brings you to that. But you want to be sure if you're investing your time and energy and like intention to the class, that it's going to reward you, and not sort of be like, oh no, you don't get to move on until you've been in this class for 6 months or whatever.
Yeah. Right. So, all right. So let's say you found one. Let's talk about making the most of class. Right. Yeah. So you're settled in. And this is one of the things too that kind of also makes me feel like I should maybe wait to find something until I like finish school. I've got 2 semesters
Oh,
left,
yeah.
right? But a big part of it I think is like, you know, showing up prepared, right? Like
Yeah.
I've already mentioned my concerns around rehearsing outside of class because I'm so strapped for time. Part of that being strapped for time, and I've even experienced this with auditions that are like 3 pages. It's like, ugh, I when am I gonna learn this? And like really give this a good go. So like, if I have a hard time with auditions sometimes because my schedule is so tight right now, should I be even thinking about class? Maybe not.
Or
Yeah.
rather, I'm going to push back on you.
Sure, please.
Can you reframe that and say, like, can I find a class that's going to exercise that muscle that forces
Sure.
me to work quickly and
Sure.
work in,
Well, yeah, because that could be very much be part of it, right? It's like it could be taking
maybe there's no
longer because I
rehearsal. It's you don't
well
you have your scene partner, you have your scene, and you both show up and you have to go.
right.
You know,
Well, that could be fun.
yeah,
Well, because I do think about this too, where it's like, is half of the challenge that I feel like I have right now is that like my setup is not up all the time. So it like takes a lot of effort to like make something,
hmm
to get that going. But I think another part of it too is because I right now am not getting a lot of high volume repetitions, it's taking me like a little longer to get off book than it used to. It's like,
right.
it's like there's some things like the storytelling I understand really quickly, but now
The
some of the,
fast twitch muscles of just
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Some of the stuff that used to come really fast, I'm now like, oh, I'm like having to work at this. This is a pain.
hmm
And so yeah, so maybe there is a like the reality is like, oh yeah, if you just find something that um, yeah, it's mostly self-driven and you're just getting reps, right? Like, and maybe that's a better use of my time. But yeah, showing up prepared, right? I think crucial. Um, and I think for me, I don't want to be the best person in the class, right? So this is maybe going back to the audit.
yeah,
It's like the I'm sure you've been in this situation and I have, and it's kind of a bummer where you're like, I'm here to just like do my work and now I've become like a secondary teacher, but I'm paying, and it's like I don't want to have to teach my scene partner uh, you know rehearsal technique or something. It's like I want to just show up and work, you know.
yeah. Yeah, I've yet to find like, well, no, that's not true. I'm in a class right now that I really enjoy, but I've been at it for years and I can talk about that, but because it's like, but so that class, I found them a few years ago and it was a Zoom class and that was what I need. I just needed something easy and it was the right time of day, once a week. So no rehearsals, just show up. You were given your scene partner a few days before and one scene partner picks the scene. So it's like assigned to you. Sean, you're picking the scene. The next week, Patrick's picking the scene for somebody else. Um, and so therefore, every week it's totally different material because based on that person's taste or what they're specifically working on. So when you're not the scene picker, you're the partner, and maybe sometimes and pretty frequently your partner is picking something that they're like, I think you'd be so good at this or whatever.
Yeah.
And other times it's like, oh, this is an audition that killed me and I want another crack at it or whatever.
Sure.
Or this is a movie I love and like I just want to play this scene. Do this scene every now and then. It's on Zoom, and so you get to play with framing and you get to play with all the things, and everyone's really great. So I'm still in it because it's now become a very intimate class. But before, and everyone's good. I like everyone
Yeah.
talent levels.
Nice.
Before that, though, I never found a class where I was like, hey, I don't know if it's like an attitude adjustment that I needed to make, or if I just didn't look around enough. Like, I don't want to be the best person, but I want to be surrounded by other people who are working, and I'm working a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be a newbie and have to work my way up the ranks. And
Yeah.
that's hard to find because I'm sure they're out there, but they might be more expensive or more private coaches where it's referral only or something like that.
Yeah.
A little tough.
I think
It's a
so.
tough one.
All right, so back to making the most of
Yeah,
class.
sorry, I got off on
Right?
a tangent
Yeah,
there.
no, it's all right. But it sounds like you're watching others and able to learn from that, right? I think that's like something
Yeah,
that you want to be able to do, not just think about your performance, right? The whole time that everyone else is going, you want to,
and you want to get paired up with those people who are going to be intimidating to you or going to
yeah,
be, giving you a lot to work with, for
yeah.
sure.
I think it's also, you know, you want to you want to apply what you're learning directly to your craft, right? So like when you're auditioning, like you should see a tangible improvement, kind of like what we're talking about here with my own self-assessment, right? It's like you should start to see these skills show up right away.
Yeah, I think, you should
Or
be able to walk away
find
from
every
class
excuse
feeling,
to use them, right? It's like I
yeah,
guess is what I'm trying to say is like take the things that you're learning in class and immediately apply them. That's how you'll get the most from it.
yeah, totally. I think it shouldn't be like too prescriptive ultimately. Like you
Yeah.
shouldn't be so worried about the approach and the way that teacher is doing it. It should somehow also feel like it's a way for you to celebrate yourself. So it should be like if you were a writer, you're being more vulnerable. If you're an actor, you're being more vulnerable. If you
Yeah.
are showing more of yourself, different personalities are coming out, different sides of your personalities are coming out in class. Like you should feel from that class like, I don't know, totally yourself and also challenged. And if you're not feeling those things, that's when it's usually time to move on or to try something else, I guess.
Right. Well, you also don't want to become like a professional student,
No.
right? Where like that's all you're doing.
And that's where that goes back to like the sort of guru worshiping.
Yes.
And I think, okay, so let's talk about moving on from class.
Yeah.
We kind of already covered the sort of technique versus the teacher a little bit. Like to me, when we said acting shouldn't be therapy, but I also think like you have to be careful who your acting teacher is, and you have to just be paying. There are a lot of horror stories out here from the last few years of teachers who were abusive to their students and still have like this guru worshiping thing happen. All these professional students who are just, insisting that that teacher was doing the right by them.
Right.
And I audited a class, one of my first classes in LA. I audited this guy's class, and a family friend was like, "Oh, you had a class today?" And he was an actor, and for back in the day, he was an actor, and he was like, "Who was your teacher?" And I told him the name, and he's like, "Really?" He's like, "I was in class with him back in the day. Like, he never booked.
Yeah.
He never worked." So I think there's a question there. I don't think every acting teacher needs to be a working actor necessarily, but it helps if some are. Sometimes that might be something you're looking for. Or are they just a professional, like almost a professor of a specific style or something?
You say academia is usually where you'll find those like purist educators,
Yeah.
like because I had like a lot of my teachers were like that, and like for them, the reason that they became teachers rather than performers was like they would either get crippling stage fright that they just could not get over, and then like that facing that became so unfun that they were like, but I still want to do something, so I'm going to teach, right? Or people where it's like, I played one of my teachers was like, I played a role that just like took too much from me, and then it was so unfun to do that it just kind of like spoiled performance for me. So
and you hear that from
right.
like casting directors and acting coaches too, of just like, I loved acting. I love the art.
Yes.
I didn't care for the business, and therefore,
and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
No, of course. Now this guy just to wrap up that story, that guy also ended up getting arrested a few months later.
Oh,
So I'm
well,
glad I never paid him any money,
yes, for sure.
because he was having inappropriate relationship with students, as
Yeah,
you know,
not
that can
bueno.
happen too.
Yes.
So you have to definitely do your homework, I think, in terms of that. And if you're getting any of those red flags as you've been going on in class, that's usually a time to move on.
Yeah. I think also there's a time where you'll feel where you've kind of gotten everything that you're going to get out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you're like, you know what, my where I'm at and what I need are no longer being served by this class, right? Or like this approach might be something that I'm now no longer working on, right? And I feel ready to do something different. Or sometimes you'll start to um, feel a clash with between what you want and what they're asking you to do. And that's like another case where you're like, okay, I want to move on from this class because like I'm now again, you're just like you've changed in a different direction than the class is going. And
That's totally, that might be even something that you can see in the audit. I think it could be hard, but like, is everyone kind of doing the same thing in that class? Are
sure,
they all approaching every scene in the same way, or like
do they have the same
hitting
pitfalls? Yeah.
the same, like, is the teacher's note the same to everybody?
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Right.
and it's teaching almost like a one size fits all approach. And you can definitely suss that out after you've been in it. I was in a class and it was like well regarded class. And like 3 months in, I was like, got it. I see all the things. I see you've given me all the tools. Now, apparently, I'm just supposed to keep going because these tools aren't so incredible.
Sure.
And I'd rather just leave with them and try something else, because
Yeah. Yeah. Go pick up some more tools. Yeah.
yeah. And you hear later from casting workshops, they're like, oh yeah, everyone who comes out of that class, like they do the same thing. Like they're all
Yeah.
like, there's no differentiation. So you want to be still holding on to your uniqueness. And if you're losing that, that's a sign to maybe move on, that you've outgrown it.
Right. I think there's also times where, you don't need a class, or maybe like a class is not your primary interest, right? And you might want to think about something else, right? Like putting that money, that time and energy into another thing that's going to help you advance your craft, which could be a
Yeah.
voice work. Maybe it's something a different class entirely.
Could be
Voice work with
writing.
Alexander could
Mm-hmm.
be writing, could be creating your
Mm-hmm.
own stuff, getting a camera and learning photography, right? Like there's other ways to interact with your creativity, because what I've found as an actor is it does kind of require all of you, right? And that you can then use that skill for all of these other art forms, right? Like it does help you with writing, it does help you with photography, it does help you with, obviously making movies, or like writing music or singing, right? Like there's so many different things that you now can use like this base root of yourself for, right? And it's all interacting with the same thing. So there might be times where you're going to get more out of doing something completely unrelated to acting, but it also is in a weird way.
Well, because
You're just getting out
like
of
we
your own
said,
way, right? It's the
yeah.
practice of
And
expression.
you're growing as a human, and you
Yes.
are living life, and all of that life informs your art.
Yes.
So there's definitely a trap of like being in class, or jumping from class to class, or always being in class where you're not living enough, and you're not, like, you have to fill the well in order to draw from it. Right.
Yes, you do.
For me, you alluded it to yourself, and I've definitely done it too. Like that. Where do you feel on the day of class? Like, how excited are you to be there? Are you getting complacent? And is that something you can fix? Right? Because if you're getting complacent just because, you know, say you're on a Zoom class and you're like, I can fold laundry while other people work. Is that really, like, you have to be
Are you?
honest with yourself. Like, are you really paying attention? Are you really invested in this class? And then, like, is that laundry part of you that's like trying to multitask, sneaking into your preparation, sneaking into your scene selection? Where are you challenging yourself? And it should continue to be a challenge.
Mhm.
Um, And if you're getting complacent and not doing that, then it's time. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Like switch it up, I think.
Yeah, I think that's good. So, some final thoughts. Classes aren't magic, right? And they're not necessarily resume builders either. I think they're useful for building skills or like wading into areas where you could be uncomfortable, or to, if you haven't developed a skill set in an area that you're castable, right? Like that could be worth going to class for, right? Like
Sure.
you could play some like goofy idiot, but if you feel uncomfortable doing that, go to class and learn how to do that well, right? It's like, and you can expand what you could get hired for because you're just developing those skill sets, right? So like that's what they're good for. It is a gym, like you said, and it is something that you're there to work out and you're there to improve your psychological and emotional flexibility and strength.
Yeah. And even though the class couldn't promise you anything, you should be getting something out of it that helps you have momentum in your professional career and get to a place where ultimately like you are too busy to have class all the time. And maybe you dip back in when you're looking for inspiration or to fill, that's your opportunity to fill your creative well because it's boring on set. So you got to find that class that is going to want to get you there too.
Right. The goal is not to stay in class forever.
No, not to stay in class forever. It's just to be like, it is a stepping stone, but it could also be a home base, a place for you to return to when needed, especially if you find a great teacher or a great community. My final thought was about your acting class, scouring. Another option, in addition to finding class, would be to do coaching or workshops, like more workshops, or one of those casting directors who does workshops might have like an 8-week intensive or a 6-week where you are specifically doing self-tapes for
You say
them.
like a self-tape class might be a good one too, because
you'll still have to get through the process of doing it quickly and
it's the reps,
but you have to do it 8 weeks in a row. You could still get complacent in it. I know I have, but like sometimes that's the challenge is like, what, I'm working on my complacency. Like I'm working on my procrastination.
Yes.
And like, can I light a fire and do the work faster or whatever?
For sure.
Anyways.
Yeah, no, that's great. But I think this has been a good chat through classes. It's got me giving me a lot to think about in terms of what I'm gonna ultimately end up doing. So
people should write in and with their favorite acting classes. And if you write in with your least favorite or horror stories, we probably won't share those, but maybe
unless you really want us to. But
but there's probably a Reddit forum for that. But yeah, definitely write in with your recommendations, your preferences. Let's hear what people are into these days.
Yeah, that's ask@supportingactors.com. So let's end here on some ad libs. For me, it has been House of the Dragon on HBO.
Oh yeah,
really enjoyed that show, and it's so well done, and it's so interesting some of the choices that they make. But I just feel like it's a show where everyone is doing such a great job, right? It's like so well performed and it's well written and the directing is great and the cinematography is awesome and the sound is well done. And it's like, it's just everyone is executing on such a high level on that show. And there's some stuff where you watch it and you're like, man, like that, how did they do this? The filmmaker part of me is like, that's a lot of water, they were doing that for like 2 weeks, and you just start thinking about the logistics of it. And I heard the creator talking that they used to joke on Game of Thrones that it was called Game of Meetings, and like for making that kind of show, like absolutely that's what it is. There's
Yeah.
meetings
It's
on
like block
meetings on
shooting in multiple
meetings.
countries. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And just like everything has to show up and be crafted and built, and it was just. But anyways, yeah. So I'm really enjoying that show. It's nice to see something so big being done so well.
That's awesome. Did you watch Night of the Seven Kingdoms?
Yes, that was great.
You did.
Yeah, I enjoyed
Okay.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
love,
enjoyed it.
yeah. I thought that was a really nice counterpoint to the
The
dragons
scale.
and the CG.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also a lot more humor, and
Yes.
30-minute episodes was quite nice.
Yeah, it was very good. Yeah.
Let's see, something I'm enjoying. We just watched Obsession last night. Came out
Okay.
on Peacock,
Yeah.
and I'm already anticipating sort of catching up on some criticism and essays and
Yeah.
podcasts about that, because I sort of watched the phenomenon from afar, and now I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of see what's going on, and I enjoyed it. It was good. My wife, who's not a big horror person, found it interesting and not too scary. There was definitely a little gore and some jump scares, but like mostly it was a well constructed story. So
Oh, that's
check
great.
it
I'll
out.
have to put it on.
Yeah,
All right.
I mean, we could definitely talk about it a lot, I'm sure.
Oh,
So.
for sure. Yeah, I'll give myself homework. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in and listening. This has been Supporting Actors. Send us a message, comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Ask at supportingactors.com. You can send us questions, longer comments, voice notes, whatever you'd like. Thanks for listening. I've been Sean Dubé.
Patrick Quinlan.
And tune in next week where I think of a better way to end this podcast.
Yes. Yes. We're going to break down Sean and build him back up again.
Love it.